80-year-old Chicago man is recovering after fending off two intruders who forced their way inside his home. The victim took matters into his own hands, opening fire on the pair.
Before he was able to stand his ground and defend himself, police say this 80-year-old homeowner was brutally beaten by his intruders. Tonight, he is listed in critical condition. Now, it all started at 10:30 this morning. That's when the two suspects, identified as a man and a woman, knocked on the victim's front door at this apartment complex at West Catherine Avenue near O'Hare. When the 80-year-old opened the front door, the pair forced their way inside. That's when police say there was a physical altercation. The homeowner, who is a Freud card holder, at some point pulled out his gun and shot at the suspects, hitting the man in the chest. The suspects then fled the scene, driving themselves to nearby Resurrection Hospital. The male suspect is listed in critical condition, while the female suspect was not injured. Both are in custody. Now, many here in the neighborhood describe this 80-year-old man as friendly, quiet, reserved, and they also said he lived by himself, which is one of the reasons they believe he was targeted.
Well, you know how the saying goes, God created all men, but Samuel Colt made them equal. One of the reasons why some people are anti-gun is because they only see themselves as the potential victim of gun violence, when in reality, the gun is a great equalizer. I don't know many 20-year-olds that can fight off two people, much less an 80-year-old. Yet this 80-year-old man was able to fight off these two intruders for one reason and one reason only. He had a gun. The gun made him equal. That's why we fight so hard for the Second Amendment. I remember having a conversation with some friends where I told them that I always answer my door with a gun in my hand, and they thought I was crazy. But this story is a perfect example of why I do this. Say what you want about how you feel the world should be. I take the world as it is. I answer my door armed, and that's even if I answer the door at all. I'm perfectly fine talking to you through my Ring doorbell. Keep in mind, if this home invasion had happened before 2010, this man may not be alive today. Because prior to 2010, no one was allowed to own a handgun in Chicago. Living in a Chicago neighborhood that had been taken over by gangs and drug dealers and having his home broken into 3 times, 76-year-old retired maintenance engineer Otis McDonald wanted to buy a handgun for home defense. But he couldn't because at the time, Chicago had a citywide ban on handguns. So in 2008, Otis McDonald sued the city of Chicago.
76-year-old Otis McDonald is suing the city of Chicago over its handgun ban. McDonald says he wants the right to protect himself from gang members who threaten the Morgan Park neighborhood where he lives.
Otis McDonald's case will be argued before the nation's high court next week.
10 years after they first moved in, Chicago enacted its handgun ban, an idea McDonald at the time applauded. But in the years that have followed, McDonald says his neighborhood has changed, more crime. He's been broken into 3 times, and he's long since concluded that the gun ban is a bust.
It doesn't work. The senior citizens and law-abiding citizens like myself is being victimized by saying that you can't have a handgun in your own home. Why?
In that case, the Supreme Court of the United States found that the right of an individual to keep and bear arms as protected under the Second Amendment is incorporated by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment and is thereby enforceable against the states. If not for the work of Otis McDonald and his attorneys, this 80-year-old man living in Chicago would most likely not be here today. Sad thing is, you would think a decision that says people should be able to own handguns in their home for self-defense would be a unanimous decision, but it wasn't. It was a 5-4 split decision, and I don't think you need me to tell you what side of the political spectrum the judges that voted against this decision fell on. The dissenting judges literally argued that the right to own guns was not fundamental. People have to understand that the Second Amendment is about protecting the vulnerable. Too many people think they're helping the vulnerable by voting for gun control. No, you're hurting them. When those 2 criminals bulldozed into this man's house, there were no police there to help him. There was no one for him to call. All he had was his will to fight and his gun. And to think people want to take that away from him? You don't protect the vulnerable by making them weaker. You protect the vulnerable by empowering them to protect themselves. Because as we can clearly see, no one else is going to do it for them. So they have to do it themselves. So stop passing stupid laws that make it harder for them to do that. And for those of you out there who do carry a gun for protection or keep a gun at home for protection, look into a membership for USCCA. Because other than keeping a gun for protection of yourself, you also want to protect yourself financially and legally. And sometimes these self-defense situations don't go exactly the way you think they should. And then you find yourself in a courtroom having to fight and explain why you did what you did to protect yourself. And that ain't cheap. But with the membership in USCCA, you gain access to self-defense insurance. And not only do you gain access to self-defense insurance, you also gain access to a wealth of information and training that is invaluable, if you ask me. So if you're interested in learning more about a USCCA membership, I'm going to put a link in the description section of this video. Right now, there's a culture war against the Second Amendment, which is why I need your help spreading our message to counter their message. You can help do this by leaving a comment, sharing this video, and click the bell and subscribe button. Let my voice be your voice, and let them know you want to keep America tactical, because the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed wasn't a suggestion, it was a directive. Also, if you're wondering where to purchase your AR-15s are essential, I will not comply. I am the militia, the new Draco design, and your state-specific Keep America Tactical shirt. Click the link under the Keep America Tactical in the description section of this video. Or if you're watching this on mobile, tap the small triangle on the lower right-hand side of this video and click the link in the description.